feeling kind of, oh my God, I don't have to wait. I can just play, and really fiercely. And so it was born by falling over and kind of looking around at what the pieces were and kind of saying yes. And I've built a career out of that.
Hey, kia ora koutou. I'm joined by Brita McVeigh, who teaches actors and non-actors how to act, working with actors, writers, directors, producers. She's been involved in the development and production of more than 500 feature films. Crazy. Episodic series, short film and theatre projects in Aotearoa, New Zealand, Australia, the USA and the United Kingdom. She's also worked with Taika Waititi on Eagle vs. Shark, amongst other things, but she joins us now. Kia ora e hoa. How are you, Brita?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
First question, what are the different ways have you got revenue? Like, how do you make a living, income, etc.?
Services, basically. So story consultancy, acting coaching, teaching. Those are my primary things. I get paid for my time in terms of collaborating with people.
Awesome. What planning do you do and what helps you stay on track? Judging by the paper you got around, you're probably similar to me. Are you digital, you paper copy? How do you do your planning and how do you stay on track?
Well, fancily, no, I have a Google Calendar and I do my accounts in Xero, and it's multi-currency Xero, so I spend a lot of time staring at stuff I don't understand. And then in terms of, so I run my working life in Google Calendar though. That's how I know. And then I use my inbox as a to-do box, which is also probably problematic. And then I always have these, I buy these, not the fancy ones that are expensive, but I buy these cheap books on Temu and I use them for all of my meetings, but I use them for all of my planning. So I always have pen and paper. And when I teach people, we're always working with pen and paper writers. So that's, I believe in that.
There's something cool about pen and paper, eh? I like it. And what does your planning look like with the Google Calendar? Let's talk about self-doubt. Like, as a creative, do you experience moments of that self-doubt or imposter syndrome? Like, have you had moments thinking like, oh,
has anybody said no? So has anybody said no?
No, everybody's had.
I mean, you'd be a psychopath if you said no.
Yeah, I know. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with that little voice?
It's not a little. I don't know. You allow it. And then you have people in your life who say, yeah, doubt. It's just don't do it alone. And in fact, befriend the doubt, which just means it's there all the time rather than trying to be in denial of it. Yeah. But so's the confidence. So you have that paradox of both. It's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I really fucking know what I'm doing at the same time.
Just walking down, I do, I'm on, I'm off, I'm on, I'm off.
But it's true, like they both coexist, and then somehow you get to a sort of soft middle bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Where they can happily live together, long lost cousins. No.
Drinking around.
How have you juggled your pursuit to create and make it financially viable? That paradox between making money and doing what you want. How have you juggled that pursuit to create and also make it financially viable for you, so you can be here and still live and enjoy life?
Well, I think I'm a bit lucky in the sense that, lucky and I'm sort of changing at the moment, but I have put aside my own singular projects. Like, I am one of the people that you're talking to who's worked in service of other people's work for a long time now, but I've done it in order to keep myself sane. I've done it in the ways that I've been telling you. So I've had to run it through my own body and make sure that I want to be there, so as that I'm wholly present in the process, unapologetically. So in a way, I've been paid to play. Quite lucky. So, also fiercely kind of went about trying to do that, I think, out of a need for survival spiritually, I guess, artistically, spiritually. And then, but you got to make your own stuff. So I am trying to rectify that and fill my own tank at the moment, even if I'm making my own stuff for myself, not for an audience, just so I have my own practice. But I have people around me saying, you have to be closer to the danger, Brita. So I'm just in a relationship with that at the moment.
Yeah, dancing around the fire, eh? This is the really important one, and probably get asked this a million times. So what advice would you give to other aspiring artists who are starting their creative path? You're like, no, don't do that, or yes, do it. You've seen people come through, right, when you help them train and whatnot. But yeah, what advice would you give to other aspiring artists who are just starting their creative journey?
Keep listening to yourself. You're more mysterious than you know. Don't believe the American imperial myth that our dreams come true, because our dreams have to be agile and change. It's not a singular dream. It's a kind of constellation of your imagination and your unconscious and the people that you meet along the way that will create the work that needs to be made. And so listen to what needs to be made. You don't know, you've got to allow.
Wow, that is powerful. I'm still pondering on that. That's let's ask this last question. What has been one of your aha moments? Like you're on the grind, you're on this creative journey that's like a roller coaster, and sometimes the roller coaster disappears and comes back. But has there been a moment on that journey for you that was like well, this is, yep, I've made the right choice to be on this train, this roller coaster, to be on this journey?
I think I've had quite a few of those actually along the way. I think I've just had a number of moments where I've been in rooms where there's been like either great laughter or you've watched people step into themselves in a way through the work where you know that they're forever shifted. Their relationship with themselves is forever shifted, and you're like, or you're in a silence where you're trying to work and you're teaching and you know you're right at the edge of yourself and you don't know what you're going to do next, and then you kind of make an intuitive choice and something works. Like I feel like I have had access to those. So I guess in the narrative of what you're asking, I don't have one clear moment. I just have a bunch of like lights along the way that keep saying you're on the right lane.
When you meet a stranger or a random person and you're having that conversation at a cafe and say, oh, what do you do for a living? You're not reading out this massive citation. What do you say to them in terms of how you define yourself in the creative scene? Do you punch out a one-liner, or have you got that figured out yet?
No, and I think that's a great and really super insightful question, because I think often we have these labels, don't we, that will kind of either open a conversation if you really want to talk about yourself, or shut it down if you don't want to get into awkward territory of trying to explain who you are to people who don't get your work. And in my family, I don't think anybody really understands what I do. It took me about 5 years to even write text for a website, because it was just conversationally sort of humiliating and awkward when people would say, what do you do? And I'd be like, well, and then I'd just stand in this kind of liminal awkward silence and I'd try and figure out what actually do they need from me. They don't need me to be doing therapy, while I try and categorize what I'm doing in a kind of left brain way. And in a way, I think that's probably because I structured a working life that isn't exactly the same as like a normal career track. I sort of sit in the intersection of a bunch of things. So even now, like this is a long answer to even say I don't have a short answer for people. Yeah. And also, I don't know, just to say one further thing to that too, you never really know how genuinely curious people are. Like if you're a genuinely curious person yourself, you ask a question like you're asking now, and even for the purpose of this, you want the answer. But if people say, what do you do? Most of the time you're like, do they actually really care? So maybe I'll just say, I work in the film industry, and then done.
And that's the beauty about the creative space, right? There's not just one hat you wear. Do you feel like you've got a lot of fingers in the pie? Like you just, and trying to explain that to people who might not be in the creative scene. So someone says, oh, what do you do? I'm a dentist, right? Picture, you understand what they do, really easy.
Yeah.
Work in the film industry. What does that even mean in a creative sense? Because there's so many different moving parts. But you've done quite a bit already, and you're doing different projects. Is that enjoyable as a creative to be so diverse in what you do, or is it a bit crazy sometimes?
I think it's just all about curiosity. That's what comes to me when you're talking. Like you craft well, I have crafted a working life based on moving away from things that bore me and moving towards things that interest me, whether it's a discipline or a project or a person. I've also noticed over time that the way to not feel crazy is to not just always say yes to things for economic reasons, because then you end up adrift and empty. In fact, that decision was like quite a while ago, like maybe 15 years ago. And now love is quite a big, love and curiosity being kind of cousins of each other is quite a big
Long lost cousins.
motivator. Yeah, exactly. And wanting to work with people that you love, or you have a sense, have a longing or a depth that you're interested in, or interested in mystery or the unseen across any kind of cultures. I'm really interested in that, or a deep kind of rage in their work, or something. People may not be easy to work with, but there's value in the engagement. So, yeah, that's what stops me being crazy.
I want to go back to the 15 years ago when you reflect back on it now and you kind of knew that's when you started, I guess, not for you're doing things for the commercial reasons, for the money reasons, but you decided to do it. Was it for the love and the passion you have of the creation and the process and the journey of creating stuff? Was that what it was like 15 years? Can you take us back? What was your mindset at that time and how you shifted?
I mean, 15 years might not be exactly right, but let's say a decade ago
Roughly,
or
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I think what can happen is, and this is where it may be useful for other people, I think you can end up with, as a freelancer, with a kind of and then energy, like, oh yeah, it's coming towards me, I better take it, or oh, $600, maybe I'll take it, or $2,500, like whatever it is, it doesn't matter the amounts of whatever, and you're like, oh, I better get it. But there's something that is about how can you drop beneath the surface of what's coming at you and try to not have a path that's determined for you and have a path that's determined by you. And I think if you are if you have an awareness that you have quite a singular voice early on, and say you work in a clear discipline, like you work in visual arts and you make your own work, it may be easier to have that more manifest for you. Like, I'm either making my own work, or I'm off collaborating with other people, or I'm teaching, or I'm whatever, to substantiate it. But for me, because I'm always working kind of energetically with people in their stories, or actors in rooms, or whatever it is, it was a bit more mercurial to figure out what was mine. So I had to find even though this principle may be true for everyone, I had to find something in my gut that meant that I could pause and then go, yes, I want to work on that, or yes, I want to teach there, or yes, I want to run those workshops. And then, they have that phrase, one for the real and one for the meal, for a reason. Every so often you're like, I'll take this one. It might make me feel terrible. It might be empty, but there's going to be learning in it. And at the end of the day, I'm doing it consciously. So I'm not just running into it and having my soul kind of go, oh, why am I here? I'm going, oh, right, this was actually, I got this and this and this out of that job. So it's, I guess, just came down to pausing really consciously before I step into relationship on any project. Yeah.
I love how you've put that, one for the real, one for the meal, because as creatives, it's tough out there, right? You've got to make a living. And I want to talk about that balance of the making money, and you're doing jobs you might not particularly enjoy and love, but also you've got these passion projects or things you're working on the side. You've been there. Can you shed some light or some tips for people who are going through it there at the moment? Like, it's like bipolar, right? One day you're like, yeah, I'm working on a project I absolutely love. And then the next day you're like, oh, geez, I've got to grind out that $600 job, or, $1,000 job, but I'm going to get through it. What do you say to people who are going through it at the moment? Is there light at the end of the tunnel?
I'm going to subvert your question so that it's not a yes, no, just for me. And I'm going to answer it by saying, well, it's your light and it's your tunnel, and also, I teach one of the most rewarding things I've done over the last sort of decade or so is teach actors at Toi Whakaari, because you get 20 totally unique humans coming from all different parts of Aotearoa, and they come with different community in their body and a different sense of purpose and a different set of needs. And one of my most favorite things, this is answering your question, I hope, one of my most favorite things is when the teaching's good and it's working across the years at that kura, is that by the end of it, some of the students say, I don't want to be an actor. I'm going to go home and work with my community, or I want to be a writer. And to me, I'm like, oh, they've found their light. Like they can hear themselves. They aren't just sticking with the contract that they made with themselves earlier on, which is, in order to feel this way, I need to be successful in this concept that I came up with for myself. I have to be a whatever, filmmaker or whatever, or an actor, or, we have these sort of young plans, and they may not necessarily be tethered to the fact that our path has to stray into the bush and then go down into the gully, and we get lost and we come out going, oh, I need to go home and work with my community, and maybe I'm going to write something, and also I'm going to take all these practical jobs that earn me money so as that I feel stable. So I think it's about trying to find who your people are creatively, trying to find where the love and the support is for yourself, and that staying in the present with that, because that's just, you may have a chosen family, and then making work as it feels right for you. So protecting the fact that for some people, one for the meal and one for the real works, and for some people, they have to do the meal as a totally different job, and then go, I'm going to make my own work for myself, or I'm going to make it with these people. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's got to have a very stay awake, people, to what you're really feeling is kind of my message. And don't just try and be an artist if it's breaking your heart, if you're actually doing other people's commercial ideas.
You've worked with so many students and worked with people, a lot of people in the industry. And I wanted to touch upon what you said there about when the students come through and they do their study and they've got this idea of what they want to do. They think creatively, I'm going to be an actor or an actress or whatever. And then at the end, they've decided they want to do something different. Do you see it in the students? Is it a confidence thing that makes them realize, oh, wait, I don't want to do that, but I want to do this? Because I think there are some students who probably ignore that voice in their head saying you should probably be over here, but they keep going down the actor or actress paths. Have you seen that? Or is there something in people, like is there an internal conflict?
I do see it. I think when the teaching's good and the container of the kura is holding the formation of the students' awareness and self-awareness, and it gets deeper and deeper, and they can feel right into themselves and their intuition and their gut, they can feel where the path should be, like immediately next. Like 5-year plan, 10-year plans, manifestation lists, whatever. It's really, as far as I can tell, trusting like what's coming towards you right now in terms of artistry and life and everything. So yes, students can ignore it, but at their peril. And I think that's true for all of us. Like we take it out of the student context. You can ignore, to be true for you and me right now. We'll have a series of decisions that we have to make about certain things, some of which will feel really clear. We'll have really good meaning structures around them. Some we're like, is that going to screw me up? Is that actually going to, what's going to, and sometimes you don't know, and sometimes you have a really strong instinct, but trying to pause and practice going, what do I actually really feel? Because there is a deep knowing, I think, with what's the right thing to do next in terms of your art and life. Yeah.
I want to rewind the clock back a bit and just get a sense of, sort of who you were as a person, maybe in your journey, sort of at the start of your creative journey. Like, I want to know, did you always want to get into, film and screenwriting and working with people in the film industry and that, or did you fall into it? Like, did you know? Was there a moment where you like, yep, this is me, this is home, or are you still figuring that out?
This is home. That's a good line. I think, well, I'm probably just telling my own story without telling my own story in terms of what I've already said to you. Like, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I was really fixed on it. I did every single thing I could. I made films. I sacrificed all other financial opportunities. I was single-minded about it. And then external things conspired, and probably internal sort of rigidity and like not totally realistic parts of myself conspired to just make me fall apart. And in the falling apart, like having no money and having written 2 feature films and short films and just keeping on getting shortlisted for things, it's just a classic story of having your hand out and having it slapped away. I kind of went, that was definitely not a this is home section of my life. But then in the falling apart, quite quickly, I think I just opened right up. You know how failure can make you like crack open like that. The Rumi quote, the crack is where the light gets in. And I think it was pretty much around then that I just started helping friends with their auditions. And then Taika was making Eagle versus Shark, and I was friends with him and Lauren and Ainsley. And I went in and helped with rehearsals while he was busy. And then I ended up just getting more and more deeply involved in collaborating with other people and in quite an agile way, and feeling kind of, oh my God, I don't have to wait. I can just play, and really fiercely. And so it was born by falling over and kind of looking around at what the pieces were and kind of saying yes. And I've built a career out of that. Rightly or wrongly, I have.
Well,
yeah.
You're here, and that's a testament to your resilience. But I want to go back, because I love how you said you're single-minded, you sacrifice. Like, maybe people don't realize how hard it is, how hard you have to work at making this a career. But there was that time when you thought, maybe this ain't going to work. Like, damn, maybe that's me. I'm bowing out. But you managed to get back on the horse, and things started working out for you. For those who are on that journey of putting the scripts through, putting applications in, trying to get funding, trying to hustle, trying to get their work out there, and just having that hand slapped each and every time, how do you get back on the horse to push through, to see that little light in the crack?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, because my version of it is crack, and see what's there, because that's what, don't be like, what is it that the Latin for crisis is? I mean, crisis is Latin for birth or whatever. So, I mean, I'm like, fall apart and rebuild yourself. Yeah, I'm like a kind of disaster story, a disaster survival story. But I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I really feel these days like the people who keep picking themselves up and going again have a tenacity and a fire that is different than mine, although I've got a real fire as well, is different than mine, and I'm admiring of it. And I don't know if you can invent it. Like that sort of sustainable will to keep battling, I guess has its own rhythm over time for different people. And sometimes what you do is, I mean, I guess let's be subversive. Sometimes it's good to not pick yourself back up, and actually have a break and go, fuck everyone, like this is too hard for me, and to go and look after yourself. And then in the act of self-care, there's some kind of awakening or awareness that feeds into the work and how you go about the work. You know what I mean? Like it's not always good to try and have a story where it's like, let's be a hero, Yeah, the work needs depth. And so sometimes you have to stop the way that you're doing things and go deep yourself to try and figure out how to nourish the process around the process. And that can make it sustainable. And then that comes back to having a loving empathy around you, where people aren't like, why are you doing this? They're like, I get it, go and work at New World for a month. It's going to make you weep, but it's actually going to make you enraged about your work, and you're going to want to make your work, like it's different for everyone.
That is so profound, in the sense that when you're working in the industry, you feel like you need to keep getting up. But here, it's lovely to hear you say it's okay not to get back on, just take some time out, recharge your batteries, and hit it back, right? Because that's something that you would encourage. Maybe, was that something creative should think about if they are at that stage where they are, banging on the wall, getting tired? Maybe just look at a bit of self-care and then get back on the horse later. Like it doesn't always have to be go, 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 go right now.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, where's the desperation coming from? And that's different in everyone. So again, it's kind of like a pausing practice where you go, I'm just feeling so desperate and overwhelmed and pushing, pushing, pushing. Okay, what's really happening underneath? And taking a moment to figure out if you need to slightly pivot in what you're doing or the pace of what, it's just, you're the only one who knows what you need. You're the only one who really knows how to take care of yourself. I mean, people will swoop in and go, hey, maybe you need to X, but that's not what sorts you out in the long term. So, yeah, it is hard out there, and you've got to be captain of your own ship. So in a funny way, you need a goal, but you also need the ability to say, well, I can see the goal, but I'm not in any hurry to get there. I'm going to get there steadily.
It's what do they say? Life's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like all I'm doing is kind of like you're saying all these like pastiche things with some extra words, but I do believe them, like you can't, I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who's still falling over and still making it up and still trying to notice what is it that's going to, like, as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking, well, God, I'm right in my own sort of transition and pivot at the moment and trying to figure out how it's always sort of, how am I going to craft my actual working life so as that it's still meeting me where I am now and giving me what I need now, and how can I do my best work and what is it in service of, and just, like keeping on being rigorous and awake. Yeah.
And how do you do that? Because I hear you say that, I'm like, yeah, I think like even myself, my own shit, I'm like, yeah, you're constantly trying to find things, but life is always going. Like life is constant. You got to service that, but you're still trying to figure out how things look like and how your working life looks like. Because as freelancers, we don't do 9 to 5, right? It's contractors, as creatives. So for you, how do you like? What is your process of figuring that out? Do you sort of look at what an ideal lifestyle would be? How would you like enjoy spending your time? Like if you wave a wand and go, all right, this is how I want to spend my time in my field. How are you working that all out right now? Because I'm sure there's thousands of other creatives on the same buzz.
Yeah, I think it's messy. Like, I think you kind of are like, all around me is like pieces of paper, like, oh, here's a massage I haven't booked. Here's my incomings and outgoings. Here's all my fitness stuff I should be doing. Like it's just a disaster. Oh, here's my passport. Like it's actually crazy. My pajamas are sitting over there on a chair from earlier, but actually here I sit in the frame, and this is what I do in my work if I'm on Zoom as well. I'm 100% available to this. I get through, and then I try and book my weeks so as that they feel like I can sustain them. I notice where the energy is in terms of the projects. I have for probably the last 5 or 6 years been deeply hungry for more in my work. And so I've been trying to figure, and by more, I mean more of a stronger sense of purpose and depth. So one part of my curiosity ran out, and I've been trying to figure out how to feed the other while still making money. So, and I had a sort of solution to that show up last year. So that's cool. But that took about 5 years to come to. But I was kind of really, so it's kind of like, I keep trying to fill my calendar and book work and get the money coming in. And at the same time, I keep going, okay, I've got to have faith that I am actually driving a path towards something that I can partially see, I intuitively know is right, and I'm going to keep heading in that direction. And maybe I'm going to end up doing more of this. Maybe I'm going to end up doing more writing. Maybe I'm going to end up doing more teaching. Emphasis shifts in the clay of it all. Does that even, it sounds so general. Does that answer?
What? Yeah, I love what I got from it is your purpose. You're making decisions with purpose. Like it seems now you kind of know where you want to be. So, because early on in the creative journey, you just take whatever, right? You're just kind of like a ship with no direction. But what I'm getting from you is you've done that route. You've sailed around the Caribbean and around the world, but now you know where you want to go and you've got this purpose, which I think it's maybe a confidence thing that artists needs to find that, right? The purpose when you do your mahi. You do it with purpose.
I think that's right. And I think for some people, they have an innate kaupapa that comes through their kind of body into their mahi. And then you refine, and that kaupapa project by project can be worked out with collaborators or inside of a context that's come toward, like there's all sorts of friction as to how you can get clear on what the purpose is for each piece of work. But yeah, I think over a life, and there's been a lot written about it too, certainly as you get to midlife, the craving for purpose gets stronger and stronger. And I'm very envious of young people who I feel they've had enough struggle, they're really planted, and that purpose, that kind of like intolerance of, I don't want any of that fucking stuff, I just want to go this way. That to me is really like, oh mate, I wish I'd had that when I was crawling out of Pākehā Christchurch, like, geez, I was like trying to wipe the mud off my knees for years, in terms of not being tethered to enough. So I think that hunger, look, I think it's different for each of us, but yes, yes, tautoko what you say.
Brita, thank you so much for your time. You've been awesome. And
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really. No, it's been awesome. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and your journey about getting, falling over the cracks, letting the light in, getting back on, still figuring it out because it's real, it's authentic. And I know people listening to this will go, it's me. And I'm glad I'm not the only one. So thank you so much, Ed Hall, for sharing your insights and your experiences. Hopefully we'll cross paths again, but all the best and thank you so much.
Yeah, lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Awesome. Ka kite.
Ka kite.